Matthias was the strongest sage alive, but Iskai'd himself to gain more power. However, when he's reborn with failure magic, he gets bullied by everyone for being weak, until he trains to become the strongest magical swordsman and crack everyone. In his old life, Matthias was the strongest mage in the world, capable of defeating beings as powerful as dragons with a single spell. Despite this, Matthias wasn't satisfied because he felt his magic crest of creation had no room left to grow, and his goal was to acquire the crest, which is generally regarded as a failure but is actually best suited for combat. Knowing that it was impossible for a crest to be changed, Matthias cast a powerful spell to reincarnate himself in the future. Centuries later, Matthias awakens in a younger body bearing the fourth crest, and he's riding cheerfully to the academy to become stronger. However, his crest's spidey senses start tingling, so he informs the carriage driver that a large calamity-grade monster is headed towards them. But the old goofball laughs and accuses him of smoking lemongrass. Suddenly, the monster appears, but Matthias destroys it within seconds, leaving the carriage driver stunned. Hours later, Matthias arrives at the capital, and he enters a store where a girl named Alma is begging the blacksmith to make her friend an enchanted sword for the magic school entrance exams, but he complains that it's impossible to do. However, Matthias steps in and offers to handle the enchantment, but the blacksmith claims that he's more delusional than Ronaldo fans because his weak crest doesn't allow him to enchant weapons. Despite this, Alma decides to put her trust in Matthias and hands the blacksmith a magic stone to use in creating the sword. As the merchant crafts the sword, Alma and Matthias start some small talk by the table, and Alma excitedly grabs Matthias's hands while telling him about her friend, causing his face to glow red like a monkey's backside. Just then, Alma's friend, Luri, walks in, and Matthias is so stunned by her beauty that he ends up introducing himself to her like a stormtrooper on meth. Luri stares anxiously at him, making him fear that his negative riz has creeped her out, but she introduces herself back in a shy manner as well, leaving Matthias and Alma stunned. After the merchant is done crafting the sword, Matthias enchants it using a combination of spells, but everyone freaks out, wondering how he did it that fast and without an incantation. As Luri tries to test the sword, it splits their entire table in half easily, making everyone fear that Matthias is Doctor Strange in disguise. But Matthias explains that he pulled it off with a regular enchantment spell. During the entrance exam the next day, Luri defeats her opponent easily by snapping her opponent's sword in half like a Kit Kat. When it's Matthias's turn, the captain of the Knight's Order, Guile, challenges him to a duel to test his skills because he knows it was Matthias who enchanted Luri's sword. At the start of the duel, Guile confidently prepares to one-shot Matthias with a powerful strike, but Matthias enhances his sword just enough to block the attack, leaving Guile stunned. After a few seconds of clashing swords, Matthias defeats Guile, and everyone is frozen in shock, except for Alma and Luri, who celebrate their man's victory. The second stage of the exam is magic casting, and Luri passes easily by destroying all targets with flame magic, causing the crowd to glaze her for having the first crest called the Crest of Glory. When it's Matthias's turn, the examiner advises him to give up and focus on other parts of the exam since he has the Crest of Failure, known for having terrible range. However, Matthias makes everyone's jaws drop to the floor by casting a powerful flame spell without an incantation, which destroys the targets as well as the training grounds. Since he passed the exam, Matthias meets up with the girls on the first day of school, but the sight of Luri in her new uniform makes his brain turn to pudding once again. Noticing this, Alma asks if they're secretly cracking, but Matthias changes the subject by reminding them that the entrance ceremony is about to begin. There, the headmaster, Edward, gives a passionate speech, motivating the students to go plus ultra in their studies, but on his way out, he tells Matthias to meet him in his office. On arriving there, Matthias fears that he's about to be forced to binge-watch Boruto as punishment for destroying the testing grounds. However, Edward shockingly asks him to teach the students how to cast wordless magic spells because it's a lost form of magic he's trying to reintroduce for an upcoming tournament. So Matthias cheerfully agrees. Soon after, Matthias is introduced to the students as their special instructor, and he showcases his skills once again by destroying some targets. However, some students start spreading rumors that Matthias could be a reincarnation of Vecna, so an instructor shows them that he can use wordless magic as well due to the training he did with Matthias, causing all the students to fall in line. After hours of training, Alma and some other students can now use wordless spells, but Luri struggles due to her incantation habits, and her magic runs out, so Matthias grabs her hand, causing her to blush. Seeing that she's confused, Matthias explains that he's transferring magic to her using a special enchantment, and afterwards, Luri successfully nails the target with a wordless magic spell. A month later, the students gather at the site of the tournament, where Matthias informs the girls that he's sensed someone with 10 times his magic power around. So they freak out and conclude that it's a demon. For the first match, Matthias goes up against an arrogant meathead named Devilis and his two companions, who immediately start trolling him for having the failure crest. However, Matthias notices that Devilis is a demon in disguise, so he destroys his two companions with a flame spell and destroys Devilis's disguise to reveal his true demonic form to everyone in the crowd. As everyone freaks out, Devilis tries to escape, but Matthias destroys him with brutal backshots and decides to solve the demon problem of this age, just like he did in his original time. As the guards inspect Devilis' body, Lori hugs Matthias and expresses relief that he's okay, until Alma makes her blush by calling her a Bollywood lover girl. Shortly after, Matthias tells Edward that beating a single demon isn't a big deal, but Edward claims that no one in history has been able to pull it off, which shocks Matthias. They soon arrive at the palace, where Edward introduces Matthias as the honored one who defeated the demon, so the king offers Matthias a magic sword with double enchantment as a reward. Seeing that Matthias isn't satisfied, the king asks Matthias what he'd like as a second reward, so Matthias asks for the rights to all resources found in the kingdom's dungeons. Apparently, dungeons are a kingdom's greatest assets, containing millions of highly valued ores and items, and in Matthias' original time, kingdoms used to fight wars over them. However, magical knowledge has waned in this day and age, so no one other than Matthias knows the true worth of dungeons. The king grants Matthias his request and informs him that the 4 demons disguised as magical chosen ones in the kingdom have all run away due to his display at the tournament. However, Matthias explains that this will lead to an even bigger problem because the demons are now planning to attack in full force and destroy the kingdom, but it would take them 3 months to gather the army to do so. Hearing this, the king worries that they're cooked, but Matthias explains that the issue can be solved within a month if all the students combine their efforts to use a divine-class artifact project, a permanent barrier over the kingdom. He then offers to continue teaching the students wordless magic, so the king decides to trust him and appoints Humans, the leader of the fight against the demons. After the meeting, a guard takes Matthias to a treasure room, where he's granted permission by the king to take whatever he wants for the barrier or otherwise. While scanning through the inventory, a special sword catches Matthias' attention, so the guard explains that it was found in an ancient ruin, but no one knows how to use it. As Matthias scans the sword with magic, he realizes that it's a sword he made in his previous life, and he asks the guard to let him have it because it's the perfect material for the barrier's core. Afterwards, Matthias also collects a magic pendant he made in his previous life, which vastly increases the gains granted by experience points. Soon after, Matthias trains the students to use wordless casting, and the girls approach him to ask about the barrier, so he informs them that he'll be heading to a dungeon to collect the materials needed. This shocks both girls, making him remember that dungeons are meant to be explored by parties, so he blushes while asking them to form a party. As the girls think about their answer, Matthias wonders if they're uncomfortable around him, but Alma complains that she'll hold him back because her lack of sword skills makes her only capable of using a bow, which she finds weak in magical combat. However, Matthias proves her wrong by firing a powerful shot with her bow and explains to Alma that she can pull it off as well since she has the Crest of Standard, the ideal crest for magical archery, so Alma agrees to join. Curious, Lori asks Matthias if he just used an enchantment, and once he confirms that it was, she pesters Matthias to teach her how to enchant things so that she wouldn't have to fight. Matthias agrees because her crest is better for enchantments than combat, so she holds his hand and expresses her excitement to join his party, until Alma teases her again. Matthias feels that he's formed a well-balanced party because he can dominate the front lines with his close combat specialized 4th crest, while Alma reinforces him from behind and Luri offers support with her 1st crest. When they arrive at the dungeon, Matthias tells the girls that monsters on the 1st floor shouldn't be dangerous and brings a small monster to show them. He then asks Alma to use it for target practice and gives her specific instructions, which allow her to destroy it with an enchanted arrow attack. Afterwards, he teaches her a move called Thread-Guided Enchant, which makes her arrow change trajectory mid-air to hit the monster and tells her to keep practicing it until she can hit 2 monsters in one shot. As Alma walks off to find monsters, Matthias tells her to pick up the magic stones that appear after she defeats them. Overwhelmed with excitement, Lori starts pestering Matthias like a $2 hoe to learn about enchantments, so he promises to teach her all the best ways to make weapons. He then takes her to a wall and destroys it using magic before explaining that the material used on the brick is crude dungeon ore, which he plans to refine to extract metal for weapons. After Matthias shows Lori the process, she successfully creates pure clusters of iron and mithril, so Matthias decides to take advantage of her quick learning skills by going right from making a weapon to enchanting it. Meanwhile, Alma moves like Hawkeye, destroying one monster after the other with her bow and arrow, and after gathering the magic stones, she meets up with her party, only to be shocked by the sight of Luri destroying walls with her newly enchanted swords. As both girls celebrate, Matthias decides that they'll reach the 10th floor as a test to see how much they've learnt. On arriving there, they see a swarm of snail monsters, and Luri tries to barbecue them with a flame spell, but her attack does 0 damage, so Alma destroys the snails with her enchanted arrows. Shortly afterwards, Alma runs into some monsters with tough shells that her arrows can't penetrate, so Lori creates some newly enchanted arrows for her, which she uses to destroy the monsters. Matthias is pleased to see the girls working well together, especially since he's gaining experience points from their progress using his magic pendant. Suddenly, a werewolf attacks, and Matthias considers helping the girls since it's more powerful than anything they've faced so far, but the dynamic duo manage to slay the beast, so Matthias compliments them and creates a magical tent for them to relax. Afterwards, Matthias tells the girls that he's going to the 25th floor to gather some more materials, but they freak out because the deepest anyone's ever gone in the dungeon is the 23rd floor. While gathering materials, Matthias notices that there's a powerful monster nearby, so he jumps into that boss room to defeat it. There, he destroys all the monsters, separating him from the boss with a single spell, and sees that the boss monster is a giant snake with corrosive venom. This makes him excited because it's his first real challenge since achieving the 4th crest, so he enchants himself and injures the snake. In retaliation, the snake swallows Matthias, but he escapes by causing an explosion in its mouth and finishes off the monster with his bankai. After the fight, he returns to the tent and shows them the head of the large snake he just defeated, causing them to freak out. Days later, Matthias and the girls arrive at the guild hall, where they notice everyone staring at them, so the receptionist explains that their school, Second Academy, has been gaining recognition because a lot of its students have been completing Monster Hunter recently. Alma says they intend to sell goods they picked up in a dungeon, but the receptionist throws shades at them for having a failure crest bearer as a leader. So Matthias aura farms by showing off the head of the giant snake he unalived, causing her to scream in shock. After calming down, the receptionist asks if the head is all they intend to sell, but Matthias shows her the magic stone of the Arc Serpent he defeated, which shocks her even more since it could be a national treasure. Matthias complains that it's not big enough to use for the barrier, but he assures them that he can get a bigger one if the need arises. At the end of the day, the party sells the giant snake head for the equivalent of 50 bitcoins, and Matthias offers to split it evenly with the girls, but they argue that they don't deserve it because parties usually split earnings based on individual contributions. Suddenly, they all sense a terrifying magic aura in the area, and Matthias reveals that 2 demons are headed to the academy, but points out that one of them is weak while the other is stronger than Devil is. He orders the girls to take the weaker demon while he handles the stronger one, but they start getting cold feet, so he assures them that they can handle it at their current level and informs them that he has a plan. As the demons prepare to attack, Matthias charges in and tries to attack the weaker demon, Deshril, but it repels his attack, and the stronger demon, Ashril, fires a powerful flame spell at him. However, Matthias realizes that he doesn't have enough magic power to counter the attack, so he summons some magic spears, which throw the flame attack back at Ashril. Ashril praises Matthias for reflecting his attack, but Matthias reveals that he didn't reflect them but rather took control of them, and he blasts Ashril from behind with his own flames. The demons angrily chase after Matthias, but Alma nails Deshril with some arrows, which Luri enchanted to disrupt the demons' magic power and slow their movements. Just like Matthias planned, Ashril orders Deshril to take care of the girls while he fights against Matthias, and he prepares to end Matthias with an overpowered spell. But our nonchalant Wizard King destroys the magic circle easily by targeting its weak spot. Matthias then literally adds insult to injury by slashing him in the abs and calling him Walmart Voldemort. So Ashril gets enraged and tries to slash him, but Matthias moonwalks midair to evade his attacks. After parrying all his sword attacks, Matthias slashes Ashril in the back, so Ashril tries to fly away, only to get electrocuted by a magical trap set by Matthias. Matthias then delivers another brutal slash and informs Ashril that flying away won't save him because he has full control over his magic. As Matthias charges in to finish him off, Ashril creates a large magic circle right in front of him, making Matthias realize that he was constructing the casting circle when they were crossing swords. After another heated clash, Ashril tries to make his dramatic villain exit by threatening to unalive Matthias when next they meet, but Matthias traps the demonic fool in an orb that zaps him with 1 billion volts of lightning and sends him to the ground. Realizing that he's cooked, Ashril tries to cast a demon spell that would take his life in exchange for summoning a large horde of monsters, but Matthias knocks him out before he can activate it. Meanwhile, Alma and Lori land another enchanted arrow into Deshril's back and run away to create distance. Seeing this, Matthias is impressed by their battle tactics, but he decides to end things by himself, so he approaches Deshril. Matthias shows Deshril that he's slimed out Ashril, but Deshril doubts that it's real, so Matthias proves his powers by showcasing a light magic spell that can destroy any demon in an instant. Deshril immediately tries to fly away, but the girls destroy one of his wings with an enchanted arrow, allowing Matthias to finish him off with a slash. After watching the battle, the people around are shocked and start gossiping about how the academy students managed to defeat demons by themselves, so to escape them, Matthias grabs both girls and flies away. They soon meet up with the king, who offers to give Matthias anything he wants as a reward for slaying the demons, but instead of requesting curvy goth girls like any sane man, Matthias tells the king to give him as many dungeons as he can. The king agrees to his request and asks the girls what they want. Without hesitation, Alma tells the king to give her a lot of money, and Luri asks for the same, so the king grants their request. However, Matthias informs everyone that a demon is eavesdropping on them using magic and calls him out, but the demon remains silent, so Matthias zaps him until he deactivates his spying spell. Hearing his screaming voice, the king notices that it's Erhard, the former captain of the Mage's Order, and asks how he managed to spy on them. So Matthias explains that he used a spell called Fixed Magical Interface for long-range surveillance. He also points out that he didn't unalive the spy and reveals that he senses a reaction coming from a particular spot in the kingdom after casting the spell. Upon further investigation, they find out that it's a village which was destroyed by demons, which they're now using as their base, but Matthias suggests that they find a different way to get there because his teleportation spell is currently useless. Hours later, Matthias takes the girls to meet Iris the Darkness Dragon with the intention of using her as a carriage, but the girls start panicking, so he asks them to stay put while he goes to negotiate. Apparently, Iris picked a fight with Matthias in his previous life, but after seeing that he's Goku level, she surrendered, so he let her go. Matthias feels confident that Iris will be happy to see him again, but as he approaches her, she threatens to unalive him and activates a flame spell to roast him. Matthias cancels her flame spell easily and tells her he's the reincarnation of the man who defeated her years ago, so she apologizes repeatedly and agrees to let Matthias and the girls ride on her back. However, Iris explains that her wings are damaged because of an arc reactor explosion that happened a while back, so Matthias heals her wings and asks her to keep his reincarnation a secret. Afterwards, Iris carries Matthias and the girls and flies them towards the village where demons are hiding. In the demon village, a demon notices that someone is approaching, but Matthias splits him in half before he can react, and the girls think they're lucky stars that they're on his side. Matthias notices that there's a demon more powerful than Astral somewhere in the lair, but he's confident that he'll defeat it because his magic power is fully recovered. As they prepare to begin their raid, Matthias activates a telepathy spell for the group that would allow them to coordinate their attacks on the battlefield and tells the girls to handle the offense using a magic casting circle. They enter a building, but are surprised to see that it's empty, so Matthias telepathically explains to the girls that Erhard is hiding in the room using a concealment spell. After Lurie pinpoints the location of Erhard, Matthias cancels his concealment spell, allowing Alma to fire an arrow directly into his empty skull. Erhard takes away the arrow and tries to attack Matthias, but Matthias blocks and tells the girls to keep firing the arrows. As Matthias clashes with Erhard, Alma fires a barrage of arrows into his back, but the stupid demon calls the attacks worthless until he realizes that he's moving in slow motion. The girls blast him with even more arrows, so he starts losing consciousness and fears that he's about to be destroyed by an imp-sized Kiryu. Out of desperation, Erhard transforms into his Hulk form, so Matthias explains to the girls that he just used a demon move called Disfortune, which vastly increases their magic power and strength in exchange for their lives. Erhard attacks the girls, but Matthias swiftly saves them and poisons him with a magic toxin, allowing Alma to destroy him with an enchanted arrow. Afterwards, Matthias tells the girls to go wait outside with Iris while he fights the other demon himself. After they've left, Matthias uses several spells to force the demon, Arius, out of his stealth mode, but Arius brags about being more powerful than Erhard, so Matthias enchants himself to prepare for the battle. Suddenly, Arius zooms in and spams attacks at Matthias, but Matthias blocks, so he slices off Matthias's arm and asks him to choose how he wants to die. Matthias defiantly tells him to go crack himself, so Arius decides to unalive him the Viltrumite way, but Matthias casually heals his severed arm. Shocked, Arius calls Matthias a monster, but Matthias smiles because he's been 5 steps ahead all along, as he imbued his arm with recovery magic way before the attack, as well as an analysis spell that gave him a complete rundown of Arius's magical nature through the wound. After dodging Arius's desperate barrage of attacks, Matthias tells Arius that he allowed him to cut off his hand on purpose and slashes his own hand with a toxin. Fueled by his desire to win, Arius activates a more advanced version of the Disfortune spell, but Matthias cancels it easily, so Arius casts a spell which turns anything it touches into mist. However, Matthias hits Ctrl Z on that spell as well and explains to the demonic scumbag that he can anticipate whatever attack he throws at him and work out countermeasures because he's already analyzed his magic nature. Suddenly, all the mana in the area starts flowing into Arius's body, leaving him confused. So Matthias explains that the toxin he slashes him with earlier was a spell to force him to draw excess magic from his surroundings and explode. To speed up the process, Matthias breaks open an orb of pure magic energy, forcing Arius to absorb it and explode like a Russian nuke. When the smoke clears, Matthias finds a giant magic stone left behind from the explosion, so he heads over to investigate it, but Lurie suddenly pounces on him and expresses how worried she was. With his face glowing red like a strawberry, Matthias assures her that he's okay, but Alma interrupts their flirting once again to ask what the crystal is. Matthias explains that dragon veins are conduits of magic power that run through the earth, and dragon vein pillars, like the crystal in front of them, are stuck into the ground to tap into that flow. He also pointed out that the spell carved into the dragon vein pillar in front of them was probably done with the intention of sending up to 5,000 10th floor dungeon-class monsters to the capital. Hearing this, the girls freak out and ask him to call the Justice League for help. But Matthias explains that there's no reason to worry because the explosion disrupted the summoning spell and shifted the spawn point to 10 meters away from the city. Seeing that the girls are still worried, he assures them that they can repel the monsters with the Academy's help and decides that they should head back to the capital to regroup. On the way, Iris asks where to drop them, but Matthias suggests that she transform herself into a human using her unique magic spell and join them at the Academy. After a bit of convincing from the girls, Iris transforms into her human form, but the spell didn't give her any plot covers, so the girls cover Matthias's eyes. Soon after, Matthias delivers the horns of the demons he defeated to Eddard for help and asks him to enroll Iris as a transfer student, so he accepts, but warns him that she'll have to score a 47 out of 50 at the entrance exam to gain admission. However, Matthias confidently assures him that she'll get it done and asks for permission to watch her test because he low-key fears that Iris could let her dragon powers run wild and destroy the Academy. Later that night, Matthias imprints a magic crest on Iris's hand, but this shocks the girls, so he explains that he only applied the pattern as the first demon did. The next day, Iris is given a written exam, but she ends up being just as clueless as you in the bedroom, so Matthias promises Edgeworth that she'll perform better in the practical exam. During the practical exam, Guile challenges Iris to a match, just like he did Matthias, because he's determined to face someone the almighty Matthias vouched for, but Matthias fears that it's a bad matchup. When the match begins, the lizard girl accidentally throws her sword away, and as she tries to pick it up, Guile angrily charges at her. But she stops his sword with her bare hands and strikes his entire body like a baseball into the school building. The next test is the magic casting test, but Iris ends up firing a powerful spell which misses the target and boomerangs back at them, so Matthias protects everyone with a barrier. Seeing that she nearly unalived them, Iris apologizes and tries again, but this time, the spell ricochets into the sky, where it explodes. Iris then casts the spell directly into the ground, but she ends up destroying the entire training ground along with the targets, leaving Edward terrified. With no other choice, Edward grants her admission, but he still worries about the damage to the school, so Matthias assures him that he'll handle it. Some days later, the students are gathering materials for the barrier, and Edward explains to Matthias that there aren't enough crests of glory because most of them in the kingdom are enrolled at the First Academy. Matthias suggests asking the First Academy for help, but Edward says it will be difficult because the First and Second Academy have been rivals for years. However, he decides to ask the king to intervene since things are dire. When he does, the king orders a meeting of the two headmasters, but the headmaster of the First Academy, Ficus, starts ranting like a whiny dirtbag that he shouldn't be summoned by the lowly Second Academy, so Edward reminds him that the king ordered it. Facing the main matter at hand, Edward tells Ficus that he wants the aid of the First Academy's Crest of Glory users in refining the ore for the kingdom's barrier, but Ficus rudely refuses, claiming he'd never let the prestigious First Academy work with the inferior Second Academy, so Edward reminds him that his school proved themselves at the inter-school competition. However, the salty fool argues that the result of the match was negated due to demonic interference, so Matthias proposes that they host another competition, where each side will decide their players and the loser will do whatever the winner wants. Ficus agrees but sets the condition that Matthias and the members of his party don't participate, so Matthias agrees and assures Edward that they'll shut the First Academy up once and for all. On the day of the competition, Edward is surprised to see that the First Academy assembled all their top students to face them, but Matthias decides not to send Iris against them because he doesn't sense any demons in the group. Ficus jestfully asks them about their team, but when they arrive, he's shocked to see that they're just 5 in number. Matthias even reveals that they all have weaker crests, making Ficus more confident that his students would destroy them. Once the duel begins, the First Academy students start their magic chants, but the Second Academy 5 blast them with wordless magic before they can even finish a line and body their entire group. Ficus is so shocked that his brain becomes cotton candy and he starts arguing that the Second Academy students are beasts, but Edward explains to him that the students that just beat his team are merely average fighters. However, Ficus angrily asks him to prove it by putting Iris in a match, and Matthias sets up a sword duel between Ficus and Iris, but Iris stuns the pompous idiot by bending her sword like a rubber band. Edward then asks Ficus why his students are still using incantations when the king ordered them to switch to wordless casting, so Ficus starts mouthing off about his goal to protect the educational standards of the kingdom. Suddenly, the king arrives and orders his guards to seize him for disobeying an order, and after he's dragged away, the king announces to the First Academy students that they'd now be working with the Second Academy and learn wordless casting. Soon after, Matthias and the girls are walking through the dungeon, talking about how impressed they are that the First Academy students complied, and Matthias is happy that wordless casting is gaining even more traction. When Lori asks why they're exploring, Matthias explains that they're there to get a large magic stone for the barrier by summoning a monster. They're soon attacked by some monsters, but the dynamic duo, Alma and Luri, easily destroy them. However, the dragon airhead struggles to defeat a single bear because she has no control over her powers. They soon arrive at a floor where Matthias decides to summon the monster, and he asks Luri to cast a summoning circle around a large magic stone. As she does, she complains that it's difficult, so Matthias holds her hand while offering to help her out, but his Riz catches her off guard. Eventually, she completes the task, so Matthias praises her skills, but Alma starts trolling the lovebirds again. Matthias then asks Iris to infuse the magic stone with her magic slowly to avoid a disaster, but the redhead dummy ends up overdoing it and summoning a monster so overpowered that the dungeon starts collapsing. While running away, Matthias scolds her for going against his order by using too much power, so she brings up an incident in his old life where he did the same by destroying the entire Black Cloververse for fun. Suddenly, a large dragon appears behind them, so Matthias asks Iris to take the lead in fighting it. Iris attempts to punch it, but it swats her away like a mosquito, so Matthias suggests calming it down with Talk no Jutsu instead. However, Iris flexes her Patrick Star-level IQ once again by rage-baiting the monster instead, causing it to attack her relentlessly. Seeing this, Matthias orders her to keep drawing the dragon's attention, and the archery duo blasts the dragon from behind with arrows, but notice that it's doing no damage to him whatsoever. Despite this, Matthias tells them to keep firing at the dragon and sets up casting circles on the magic circles all over the area. Eventually, the girls' arrow shots anger the dragon, so Matthias tells Iris to protect them, and she punches the dragon to the ground. This leads to a heated UFC match between Iris and the dragon, which ends in Iris being knocked 10 feet into the ground. When she returns to the surface, she asks Matthias why the dragon hasn't roasted her with a breath attack, so he reveals that he's blocking it with magic. Soon, the time arrives for Matthias to make his big move, so he orders the archer duo to get away from the dragon and tells Iris to rage-bait the dragon into using flame breath. Following his command, Iris calls the dragon an oversized weasel, getting him so pissed off that he prepares to roast her with a flame breath, but Matthias casts a spell capable of inverting the dragon's attack on itself. However, the dumb fool, Iris, ends up falling into a hole again, so Matthias runs to her and casts a magic barrier to protect her from the blast. When the smoke clears, Lori and Alma are amazed that the dragon has been defeated, but they notice that Matthias and Alma are nowhere to be found. However, Matthias arrives unscathed, and Iris appears as well, carrying the dragon's magic stone, so Matthias decides to officially add Iris to the party. Following this, Matthias destroys a portion of the school's land and explains to the girls that they're using it as a training ground to help Iris get used to her human body. During the training, Matthias admits that Luri has gotten so much better at enchanting and tasks her with creating a weapon for him, which makes her jump in excitement. After gathering all the materials, Matthias gives Luri a detailed lecture on how to craft the weapon with magic, and she successfully pulls it off, so Matthias decides that they'll make a weapon for her next. When she's done crafting the weapons, the girls test out their new weapons on large boulders and destroy them easily, so Matthias challenges all three of them to a sparring match. After the match, Matthias decides that he'll leave the school soon after they drive away the demons, but Luri hears him. Days later, Edward announces to the students that it's time to begin the Kingdom Barrier operation, and their best fighter, Matthias, will be too occupied with the barrier to engage, so he motivates the students to give their all in combat. During the preparations, Matthias senses a demon nearby, so Alma and Luri question if someone has leaked their plan. But Matthias explains that they wouldn't have detected their casting so easily if that was the case. He guesses that the signal they're picking up is a transformation spell called Magirode and tells them to handle the matter since he currently has his hands full, leaving them shocked. One of the students leads the duo to the spot in the forest where the demon portal is being opened, but she wonders how they're completely exhausted after running several miles with her. While staring at the oars, Luri remembers an earlier conversation they had with Matthias, where he told her to use her special metal arrows against the demons and figure out what spells to imbue them with by herself. This shocked her, so Matthias explained that it's important to read the situation on the fly and work out the ideal casting circles herself. Seeing that she was still worried, Matthias assured her that he's taught her everything she needs and says he's confident that she'll pull it off. In the present, Luri enchants Alma's arrows with powerful magic, so Alma sings her praises, but the girl is shocked that Matthias literally has the Scarlet Witch and Wonder Woman as his sidekicks. As the demon arrives from the portal, Alma blasts an arrow into its chest, sending it straight to the ground. Another demon immediately appears, and Alma fires an arrow into its arm, but the demon still charges at her, so Luri splits it in half with her sword. The demon portal vanishes, indicating that there are no more demons around, so the girls celebrate that they successfully handled a problem without Big Daddy Matthias for the first time. However, they feel a weird surge of magic coming from the capital, so they rush back to check if Muzin and the 12 Kizuki have appeared. When they return to the site, Matthias explains that the demons are in the process of using a more powerful version of Magirode that sacrifices a demon to achieve long-range travel. He then informs them that the demon will appear above the second academy and asks them to buy him time since he's still working on the barrier, so they rush to battle. The girls soon arrive at the academy, where Edward gives them a large pile of magic stones which Matthias left for them, and Luri realizes that he went that far to make sure she doesn't mess up. So she decides to make sure it succeeds. Suddenly, A demon rips the sky open to enter the scene and fires a powerful blast at the students, but they block his spell using defense magic they learned from Matthias. Following Edward's command, some students blast the demon with flame magic, but the flames go out before reaching the demon, so Alma attempts an arrow shot. The demon catches the arrow easily, but Lurie asks Alma to buy her some more time because the casting circle is too complex. As the students hold back the demon, Lurie taps into the power of friendship and creates a new overpowered arrow, which Alma blasts at the demon. The demon dodges and starts to brag, but Alma redirects the arrow into his back, allowing the other students to shoot him down with flame magic. However, their celebrations are cut short when a stronger demon appears with his army and blows them all to the ground. Even in this hopeless situation, Alma steps forward to buy Matthias the time he asked for, so Lurie supports her by enchanting her arrow. The demons start making plans to do a hunting game with the students, but Matthias makes a majestic entrance by destroying one of the ugly dirtbags with a fatal backshot. He aura farms even more by splitting another demon in half and telling the others to choose if they want to die. But the leader of the demons transforms into his Hulk form and claims that he can never defeat a fully powered demon. However, Matthias confidently plays Fruit Ninja with the demons' bodies in mid-air and destroys all of them, causing the girls to hug him in celebration. Alma glazes him for being a better swordsman than Ichigo, but Matthias says it's all thanks to the enchanted sword that Lurie made and thanks her for it. He also thanks Alma for buying him time and informs both of them that Iris and the others are handling the rest of the barrier's construction because he's done making the hole for it. When they return to the site, Matthias plants the magic stone into the magic crystal, which activates a large barrier around the kingdom, but he tells the girls that the fun is just about to begin because the demons summoned an even larger horde of monsters to the area. Shortly afterwards, the students are gathered outside the kingdom to face the monsters, but when the beasts appear, they immediately fall victim to the traps Matthias set on the ground, making it easier for the students to destroy them. While watching the fight, Matthias assures the girls that the students wouldn't lose to the monsters because they've improved vastly over the past months. However, some deformed armored titans show up, so Edward orders the students to retreat, and Matthias appears with his party to handle the situation. Matthias takes down one of the large beasts by throwing Iris directly into its head, and the archer duo start firing away at the other demons. Suddenly, a powerful force appears and starts absorbing the monsters, so Matthias explains to the girls that it's a demon called a Void Eater that gets stronger after absorbing monsters. Following Matthias's plan, Matthias and the girls make the Void Eater grow even larger by throwing magic stones into it, and after it's fully evolved, he tells the girls to support him while charging in to face it. After Iris injures the monster's leg, Matthias stabs its eye and uses a super enchantment on his sword to rip the Void Eater's legs apart. However, the beast regenerates, so Matthias unleashes a relentless flurry of attacks which weaken the monster and beheads it with an enchanted slash. The next day, Matthias tells Edward that he's leaving the academy to do a survey of the dragon veins, but Edward decides not to expel him but rather give him a special scholarship that would allow him and the school to support each other whenever the need arises. Seeing that the girls are sad, Edward also offers to give the girls the scholarship, and they immediately accept the proposal because they're determined to follow their daddy to the end of the earth. Shortly afterwards, Matthias and the girls say goodbye to Edward and the academy and kick off their new adventure. During their journey, Matthias informs them that their destination is the Melkia dungeon, a large dungeon with hundreds of floors, but Alma is confident that they'll be fine because dungeon cities are usually safe. Iris asks what dungeon cities are, so Lurie explains that there's a city built over the dungeon, but this shocks Matthias because nothing like that existed in his past life. Alma and Lurie are worried that their journey could take a long time since the city is pretty far away, but Iris suggests using a nearby forest as a shortcut, which would allow them to arrive there within a day. However, the girls are terrified of the forest because it's deadly and packed with monsters like the Dark Continent, but this only makes Matthias more hyped up to explore it. As they explore the forest together, Lurie starts whining about how scared she is, so Iris offers to fly them out of there, but Matthias reminds her that her wings are damaged. The girls are hungry, so Alma suggests eating their rations, but Matthias decides to hunt down something for them to eat instead. In a split second, Matthias does a Naruto run into a deeper part of the forest, where he notices that the monsters are moving around in an orderly fashion because they're being controlled by someone. The leader of the monsters tries to ambush Matthias, but he already knows the attack is coming, so he easily annihilates the bootleg King Kong and delivers its lifeless body to the girls to use in making dinner. However, the girls are creeped out by the beast, so Matthias summons a large boar for them to eat instead and assures them that it tastes just as good as KFC chicken, so they cheerfully prepare it for dinner. When the meal is ready, Alma and Lurie hesitate to eat it, but they see that Iris is munching down 2 large pieces of meat from both angles like Mia Khalifa. So they eat theirs as well and are amazed by its delicious taste. Alma then creates a soup and asks them to taste it, but Iris ends up spitting it out because it tastes just as bad as Indian street food. After everyone's eaten their fill, Matthias announces that it's time to resume their journey, and he assures them that they'll reach Melkia before sundown because his flex on the gorilla monster will make the others stay away. Hours later, they arrive at the Melkia dungeon city, but they're shocked to see that it's darker and gloomier than Gotham. They notice a strange magic lamp on the street, but as Matthias checks it out, a merchant warns them to be careful because it occasionally explodes and unalives hundreds of people. Hearing this, Matthias tells the girls to get away as fast as they can, and the lamp goes kaboom. Afterwards, Lurie yells at the merchant for making something so dangerous, so he explains that they used to use magic stones, but their new lord now forbids them from using it because it's their city's most valuable resource. Matthias asks if the new lord is also the reason their city is so underpopulated, so he explains that a large monster appeared on the 10th floor of the dungeon, where their new lord sent most of their adventurers. After buying some apples from the merchant, Matthias takes the girls to a wall in the city bearing a poster, which says that they need a guild-issued permit to enter a dungeon, and he decides that they should go investigate the dungeon. Shortly afterwards, they arrive at the guild hall, where Matthias asks the receptionist for some permits, but she advises against it because permits are issued directly by the lord himself, and staying in Melkia means they have to partake in any special requests the lord asks of them. Hearing this, Matthias asks if the quests are dangerous, so she explains that they come in many absurd forms once a month and always result in casualties. Despite her warnings, the girls are still excited to take on the challenge with their daddy, so Matthias asks the receptionist to give them 4 permits. Before she can start the application process, a girl suddenly arrives and asks if anyone knows any healing spells that could save the numerous adventurers injured by the large monster, so Matthias volunteers to handle it. When she takes them to the infirmary, Matthias is shocked by the number of injured people around, so he asks the girl why there aren't enough healers around, and she explains that they were all driven away by the Lord, who saw them as a waste of money. Determined to save the injured warriors, Matthias takes off his jacket and prepares to begin the healing process, but some boneheaded healers show up and try to chase him away. However, Matthias shuts them up by fully healing a severely injured man and issuing commands to the girls and the other healers to save the others. After hours of hard work, they manage to heal all the injured people, so the leader of the healers thanks Matthias for his heroism. Matthias then asks him if the previous leader died, so the man explains that he died an abrupt, unexplainable death in his sleep, making Matthias conclude that the current lord is a demon who unalived the previous lord. A while later, Matthias writes a letter to Edward, informing him about the matter at hand, but he creates a fake letter on top of it and hides the original one with magic to avoid inspection. He then tells the girls to rest well for the night because they now have their permits and they'll explore the dungeon the next day. In the middle of the night, Iris and Alma are deep asleep, but Lurie and Matthias are freaking out because it's the first time they're sleeping beside each other, and they calm themselves down by counting monsters. The next morning, Matthias and the girls arrive at the Melkia dungeon, but Matthias points out that the gate is made of iron, which is easy for monsters to break through, and this only adds to his suspicions about the city. After their dungeon raid, Matthias presents the bony skull of a large monster to the receptionist for sale, but she freaks out and asks how Matthias defeated it, so he explains that it's the girls who handled it. Matthias watches the receptionist while she writes a report about them to the Lord, telling him that the girls are beasts while Matthias is a healer since he didn't participate in the battle. After the trade, Matthias and the girls enjoy dinner together, but on the way back, Matthias spots some bandits sent by the Lord to attack them, so he decides that he'll unmask this evil mastermind. Matthias decides to take a different route home and telepathically tells the girls that they're being tailed by some goons sent by their Lord. He tells them to use a concealment spell to see what they can do, and if the minions are hostile, they'll pull the rug from under them. After they disappear, the lackeys start searching for them, but Matthias returns with the girls and innocently asks for directions back to their inn. Once they show them the way, Matthias smiles while asking how they knew the directions to their inn, so they realize that they're busted and take Matthias hostage. The foolish bandit leader tells the girls that he knows Matthias is the weakest among them because he's the healer of that group, but they're all stunned by his lack of brain cells. He confidently declares that they'll become slaves for the new lord, but Matthias tells Iris to knock them out without using weapons, so she nonchalantly walks towards them. One of the armed thugs tries to hit her with a club, but she splits his weapon in half and knocks him out with an axe kick. As the others charge towards them, she takes them down with wrestling moves and sends the leader flying with an uppercut. While the hoodlums are unconscious, Matthias casts a tracking spell on them as well as a demon-detecting one and tells the girls that he believes they're working with the demons. When they wake up the next day, Matthias tells the girls that it's time to head out because they've received a letter from the king's messenger, so they head to the meeting spot. There, they meet the messenger Eric, who reads out the king's response to his letter, where the king permits them to take the Lord of Melkia, Dokiel, into custody, so Matthias thanks him. Matthias then asks the girls if they're okay with his plan to arrest Dokiel themselves, and they all agree to go through with it because they're sick of the current state of Melkia, so Matthias informs everyone that Dokiel is in an estate downtown. Eric warns Matthias that the estate is heavily guarded and offers to call the guards for assistance, but Matthias assures him that his party can handle it just fine on their own. When they arrive at Dokiel's estate, the girls are surprised that there aren't any guards around, but Matthias senses plenty of signatures within, making him realize that the enemy has parked the bus-like arsenal. They realize that Dokil knows of their plans, so Eric suggests heading back, but Matthias decides to indulge them by bursting through the front gate instead. Once they do, the guards rain magic blasts on them, but Lurie blocks with a magic barrier, and Matthias obliterates them all with a powerful lightning spell. Afterwards, they head to the staircase because they believe the Lord is on the second floor, but Matthias tells everyone that he only senses signatures coming from the basement. This confuses Lurie because the blueprints claim the basement is empty, but Matthias opens up a secret door, which they all run through to find the evil mastermind. In the evil lair, Dokil prepares to send reinforcements after Matthias's party, but Matthias suddenly arrives with his team, so he orders his men to attack them. However, Matthias destroys all of them in a split second, and Eric informs Dokil that the king had ordered his arrest, but Dokil claims that terrible things will happen to the city if anything happens to him. Matthias cuts his cheap villain monologue short by knocking him out with a spell, and Eric picks up his unconscious body, but Matthias decides to investigate further to find out how the scumbag anticipated their raid. He then shows Eric a burnt-up letter, which reveals the king's order to arrest Dokil, as well as the fact that an authorized executor will be arriving soon. When Eric asks how they got it, Matthias scans it and finds out that it has traces of magic on it, so he concludes that there's a demon involved. Lurie guesses that the demons are after the Melkia dungeon's magic stones, but Matthias says they're actually trying to get the dragon vein in the dungeon instead because it's much larger than the one at the capital and capable of causing a worldwide calamity if infused with magic. Hearing this, Eric decides to report to the palace immediately, but the entire city starts vibrating, and Matthias informs the others that the demons have tampered with the dragon vein to summon a large horde of monsters there. However, he points out that it would take 2 hours before the horde of monsters arrives at Melkia and suggests heading back to the dungeon to handle the demons within that time. When they return to the dungeon, Iris digs up a path, which leads them to the dragon vein room. There, Matthias decides that they should split into 2 teams. He'll head to the floor where the demons are hiding and attack while the girls restore the dragon vein to normal, with Lurie acting as leader. When the operation begins, Lurie uses her enchantment magic on the dragon vein, while Matthias destroys every monster on the upper floor, and he soon arrives at a floor where a demon is hiding. As Matthias jumps in for an attack, the demon repels him easily with a demonic barrier, and the demon's boss commands him to end the battle quickly before Matthias can penetrate the barrier. Matthias realizes that this demon is the toughest he's faced so far because it's using techniques specifically designed to counter his crest, so he telepathically orders Lurie to activate magic circles in specific parts of the dungeon. When Matthias charges in for a second attack, the demon forces him back with dark blasts and tries to destroy him, but Matthias blocks the attack, so the demon's boss orders him to switch tactics to use their trap instead. Hearing this, Matthias charges ahead, dodging the demon's blasts while giving Lurie specific instructions to cancel the demon's magic traps. Afterwards, Matthias overwhelms the demon with a barrage of light spells and destroys his barrier with his sword, so the demon's boss orders him to go into berserk mode. After transforming, the demon spams dark blasts at Matthias, but the petite Gigachad dodges and decapitates him. When Lurie is done with her task, Matthias tells her of his plan to track the demon giving orders, but the mastermind demon intercepts their telepathic communication to ask Matthias if he knows where he is. Matthias sees through the decoy city implanted in his mind and tells the demon he doesn't know before promising to face an intense showdown with him soon. Hours later, Matthias and his party are camping in the dungeon, and Matthias explains to everyone that he plans to track the mastermind's location using a trace of the magic signature he recorded in a magic stone. This confuses the girls, so he explains that there's a device from 1,000 years ago that can be used to trace an enemy using a magic stone, and they can use it to pinpoint the mastermind's location. They ask how Matthias knows how to use it, and he nearly spills that he's the one who created it, but Iris signals him with a cough, so he lies that he just stumbled onto it. Matthias then informs them that the device is located in the Redinia Alliance and assures them that the king and headmaster will ensure that they get to it easily. The next morning, they return to the capital, but they're shocked to see that the second academy is no longer in its original position. However, Matthias finds a poster, which states that the school is under construction, and Edward arrives to explain that the school is being rebuilt with thicker walls and a barrier to withstand demon attacks. When Lurie asks where they'll be holding classes, Edward says they'll do it at the first academy, but they're currently engaged in the construction process because it's good casting practice for them. Shortly after, the party meets up with Edward in his office, where Matthias informs him that there's a demon voiced by Dio Seiyu pulling the strings, and he needs to cross the border to the Redinia Alliance to find him. However, Edward assures him that the king will help out and promises to make a recommendation to seek the guild's cooperation as well. As a show of gratitude, Matthias decides that his party will help with the school's construction as well, so Edward graciously accepts the offer until the goddess of destruction, Iris, asks to join them. After hours of doing construction work, Edward hands the team their border crossing permit and the king's voucher for the Radinia Alliance, so they thank him and begin their journey to the Radinia Alliance. They soon arrive at an area close to Radinia, where Matthias explains to the others that entry to the region containing the device is heavily restricted because they fear that a magical calamity could occur. However, based on the information Edward gave them, the way to gain access to the restricted region is by increasing their adventurer rank to rank A. For this mission, Matthias suggests heading to the Adventurers Guild in Radinia and completing their task, but Lurie complains that it will take a whole lot of time, so Matthias decides that they could speed things up using Iris's dragon form if they force their hand. When they arrive at the Adventurers Guild, they're greeted warmly by the Guildmaster, who informs them that the king has already vouched for them to foster cooperation against the demons. Matthias requests to take an A-rank test, and the Guildmaster agrees, even though he'd normally start newcomers with the G-rank test. When Matthias asks what the test is, the Guildmaster reveals that it's a mock battle against a proctor, but a chopped, arrogant dude named Gilois suddenly arrives and announces that he's the proctor of the Ascension test. Just by looking at him, Matthias realizes that he has a powerful magical signature comparable to demons, so he asks the Guildmaster who Gilois is, and the Guildmaster introduces him as an S-rank adventurer who is obsessed with fighting. Matthias isn't bothered by this and asks to begin the test, but the Guildmaster warns him that no one has ever passed a test run by Gilois because he failed every previous applicant without even fighting them. Gilois explains that they were all cannon fodder who weren't worth fighting, and claims he's only interested in strong guys, so Matthias gets hyped up to face him. When they gather at the test grounds, Gilois shockingly passes all three girls and challenges Matthias to fight him one-on-one because he's heard about his feats as the heroic demon slayer of the Eris Kingdom. So Matthias accepts his offer. As they prepare to begin the duel, the girls worry for Matthias, but the Guildmaster makes things worse by informing them that Gilois is a combat prodigy who's never lost a fight. Matthias asks Gilois for the rules, so the battle junkie stipulates that the match is over when one of them gets knocked out or gives up. He also permits Matthias to use magic, claims that he won't use magic, not as a handicap, but because his enchanted sword is all he's ever needed in battle, and after a close assessment, Matthias realizes he's telling the truth. Once the duel begins, Gallius charges towards Matthias at supersonic speed, and Matthias manages to dodge the attack but notices that he's one of the few humans in the world who can cast enchantment spells unconsciously. After minutes of clashing, Gallius demands that Matthias stop holding back, so Matthias charges at him with full force, but he blocks the attack and expresses his excitement to finally fight someone worthy of him. Matthias realizes that it's his first time fighting someone better than him, and it's allowing him to increase his combat instincts. But Gallius uses Matthias's own magic hopping move to launch an attack at him. However, Matthias appears unscathed and tells him his casting strength isn't good enough before launching him into a wall. Gallius gives up, so Matthias is declared the winner, but Matthias still admits that Gallius was super strong. When Gallius asks Matthias how to get as powerful as him, Matthias gives him a textbook to improve his magic casting and tells him that he'll surpass him if he puts in the work because he has natural talent. However, Gallius complains that magic casting isn't his thing because it leaves him open to enemy attacks. But Matthias explains to him that he can get a lot stronger by learning to cast his physical enchantment spells consciously. When Gallius tries to read the book, his brain gets fried on the first page, so he freaks out. Soon after, Gallius asks Matthias why he isn't going for S rank, so Matthias explains that he only needs the A rank grade to enter the restricted area, which is Etelis Plains in the Folkia region. However, Gallius warns them of some strange occurrences going on in that region recently, including that parties have been going missing on the way there, but he promises to help them out if they encounter any problem. When Matthias and the girls arrive at the Zulgia region, Matthias notices that the access card given to them is inscribed with a demonic code, which instructs some mercenaries ahead to unalive them. This makes them realize that Zulgia is under the control of the demons, but Matthias decides not to unalive the assassins but knock them out instead. He creates some magical holograms of his party to distract the lackeys, while Lurie and Alma secretly cast a spell that knocks them out. However, Matthias and Iris see that the two Noodlebrains have fallen asleep after getting caught by their own spell. Matthias wakes them up and tells them to make sure they check the effect range of a spell before using it, but Alma yells at Iris for drawing a mustache on her face. When the team arrives at Folkia, they notice that the city looks creepy and sense 30 demon signatures scattered in the city, which confuses the girls since demons don't usually work in groups. Matthias explains that they're demodemons, a rare offshoot of the demon race who can't use magic and work in groups, which makes them very dangerous. So he decides to enter the city using a hidden passage instead of the front gate. He leads the team through the secret entrance into a sewer, where Lurie gets scared by rats and holds Matthias for comfort, but this makes his pee-pee jump from excitement in his pants. After several more minutes of walking, Matthias detects a demon ahead, so he tells the girls to wait behind and uses a spell to phase through the wall to the demon's hiding spot, where he knocks the demon out with a spell. When the girls ask what he did, he explains that he used a stupefaction spell, which temporarily dulls the target's senses, but he forbids Iris from drawing any mustaches on his face as they move ahead. They soon arrive at the center of the city, where they notice that the people around are all acting like lobotomized stormtroopers. Matthias notices that their magic signatures are strange, so he scans one of the people and finds out that a spell called thought paralysis has been used on them, and since every adventurer is in the same state, they conclude that it's the work of demons. Minutes later, they arrive at a factory where a demon is casting the thought paralysis spell on everyone, and Matthias decides to investigate, but casts a defense spell on his team to help them resist the thought paralysis. They try to blend in with the zombie crowd, but the goofy dragon girl slips and falls on her face, causing the demon to notice them. However, the demon assumes that they've all been overdosed on thought paralysis, so he lets them move ahead. Inside the factory, they find some strange dark ores are being gathered, and Matthias explains that they're Rankine magical ores, which can be used in making explosives after being refined into magic stones. However, he claims that it would take decades to gather enough magic crystals needed to pull it off. Matthias decides that they have to wipe out the demons because of their plan to destroy a nation, and also because the thought paralysis spell they're using could have permanent negative effects on its victims. However, he explains that the demons have a shared consciousness, meaning that the other demons will sense if one has been unalived, but he comes up with a plan to use their teamwork against them. Shortly after, the demons see a magical surge somewhere in the city, so their leader, Lucius, sends a squad to investigate and destroy the culprits. However, Matthias ambushes them and destroys a couple of them. Suddenly, the remaining demons hear an explosion, so they run over to investigate, but Matthias appears behind them again and splits their empty skull in half. Apparently, Matthias's plan all along was to unmask Iris's immense magic power all at once to draw the demons away from the center of the city so that Matthias and the girls can ambush and destroy them. After chasing Iris down, a demon tries to attack her, but his sword shatters on impact with her head, and Iris sends him crashing into a building. Seeing this, the demon's partner tries to run, but Matthias pulls the ugly vermin back to hell where it belongs. He then signals Luri and Alma that a demon is approaching their location, so Alma throws an explosive magic stone, which floors the demon, allowing Matthias to take him down with a diabolical backshot. Matthias's plan effectively takes out several more demons and makes the remaining demons so confused that they think they're being attacked by trap spells. The demons activate their observation haki to detect the trap spells, but they don't detect Matthiaso and the girls due to their magical disguise, so Matthias telepathically tells the girls to take out more demons. Following this order, the girls destroy several more demons, and Lucius is still baffled by what's going on, so he jumps down to investigate. After inspecting the dead body of one of his men, he instructs the others to retreat because the enemy is hiding and attacking them, so Matthias decides to attack all of them at once. At their meeting spot, Lucius announces to his minions that he's decided to activate the magic stones to wipe out the enemy, even though half the city will be destroyed with the humans living inside. However, Giluz makes a surprise entrance by slashing a demon from behind, and after destroying several more demons, he challenges Lucius to a fight. During their clash, Lucius knocks Giluz down and orders his men to finish him, so they surround him. However, Matthias assists him by destroying several of the demons, and Iris joins the fight as well by bodying several more of the demons with her enchanted spear. Giluz and Lucius continue their duel, but Giluz's attacks don't penetrate Lucius's skin, so Lucius takes advantage by injuring him. Seeing this, Matthias offers to help Giluz, but Giluz tells him to stay out of his fight and goes full Ultra Instinct before attacking Lucius again. After several minutes of clashing, Giluz uses his ultimate attack, Requel Sunder Steel, on Lucius, and this manages to injure Lucius's body, but also weakens Giluz in the process, allowing Lucius to slash him down. Matthias decides to help out, but before he can approach them, Giluz gets back on his feet and uses a double recoil Sunder Steel to brutally injure Lucius. Following this, both fighters activate their ultimate moves, and after a final clash, Giluz wins the duel by a hair's breadth. However, Lucius regains consciousness and tries to attack the girls, but Matthias blocks his attack and informs the girls that his magic signature is now different from when he was fighting Giluz. The evil mastermind possessing Lucius tells Matthias that he'll soon destroy the seal and revive completely, and Lucius's body rots away. Seeing that the girls are confused, Matthias explains that a powerful demon animated Lucius's corpse, but the body couldn't take it. Giluz calls Matthias for help, so Matthias heals him. And Giluz heads over to the confused crowd to announce that he's now in control of Folkia thanks to the Emergency Authorization Act. This confuses the girls, so he explains that a high-ranked adventurer can temporarily take control of an area if the leader goes missing, but Matthias worries that he'd be a worse leader than Trump. Giluz asks if there are any people of authority or foremen among the crowd, and once a foreman answers his call, he appoints him as the provisional lord of Folkia, leaving Matthias and the girls stunned by his stupidity. Soon after, Giluz gives Matthias a guild-issued permit to enter the restricted area, and Matthias thanks him, so he waves them goodbye and heads off to continue training. After days of traveling, Matthias and the girls finally find the machine from the ancient civilization, which they seek, but Matthias hides the fact that he created it himself during his past life. Using his crest, Matthias infuses the rock at the entrance with magic, causing it to float in the air and open up a path for them. However, the path goes downwards, so Matthias enhances his body with magic and jumps down, and after a bit of hesitation, the girls gather up courage and do the same. Inside the chamber, they find the control system of the device, so Matthias tells the girls to go look for ancient weapons and treasures while he prepares the device for activation. After they leave, Matthias starts operating the machine, but Lori returns to show him a sword she found in the ruins. Matthias recognizes it as a cheap knockoff of Zangetsu he created in his past life to look cool, but he regrets not getting rid of it in his past life. Just then, Alma shows up with a spear that's too large to carry and proposes that Iris uses it as a weapon, but Matthias explains that it's difficult to control and would evaporate everyone around if she messes up. However, Iris shows up with a box of canned food preserved from ancient times, but when she opens one of them, the rotten stench knocks her out. Shortly after, Matthias places a piece of the refinery on the device and activates it to track down the demon, who gave the refining tech to the demons. After the analysis, several screens appear, which confirm that it's a demon that's behind it, and Matthias informs the girls that it's the same demon that was issuing orders to the demon in Dungeon City. He then reveals that the demon is cooking up a plan to destroy all of humanity, but assures them that he'll find the mastermind's location using a magic stone. After placing the magic stone on the machine, Matthias activates a spell called Wide Range Detect, but all the screens turn red, so he informs the girls that the seal holding the final villain is about to be broken. With the demon's image displayed on screen, Matthias reveals to the girls that he's an overpowered demon named Zardias, who they can't defeat in their current state, so the girls start panicking. Matthias further explains that the reason he was sealed is that the people in his original time couldn't finish him off, and the only way their party can stand a chance against him is if they use immortality spells to train for thousands of years. However, he points out that Zardias would have already laid waste to humanity by the time they're done training, so Iris starts scanning through the weapons they brought to find one powerful enough to face him. Suddenly, a light bulb appears on Matthias's head, and he tells the girls that they could manage to defeat Zardias by using powerful magic items from elsewhere in the world against him. Using the tracking device, Matthias finds a special magic sword in the royal treasury of the capital, and he's confident that he can face Zardias using it. On the way, Matthias gives the girls some magic stones he created to react with the magic sword, but he explains that they'll have to burst into the treasury and explain their actions later. However, they're suddenly pulled down by a terrifying aura. So, Matthias explains to the girls that Zardias had broken his seal and is currently coming after them because they're the only thing standing in the way of his evil plans. He orders Luri and Alma to find the magic sword while he holds off Zardias, so Luri motivates him by promising to give him the sloppiest Hawk Tua of his life if he beats Zardias. Afterwards, the girls land in the academy, and Matthias explains to Iris that Zardias is currently traveling through a dark space exclusive to demons, but he plans to seal the space with magic before he arrives to buy them time. While running towards the treasury, Alma suggests asking Edward or the king for permission, but Luri says it's best not to because it's an urgent situation that holds the fate of the world in the balance. Suddenly, a crack opens up in the sky, so Matthias launches his attack, but it does not affect Zardias' portal, so Matthias decides to fight him directly. Once Zardias appears, Matthias asks Iris to blast him with flames, so she unleashes a fire breath attack on Zardias, but the demonic Gigachad tanks the attack like a feather tap. He then summons his demon sword and launches a powerful slash at Iris, but Matthias cancels the attack, so Zardias attacks him as well, making him realize just how fast and powerful Zardias is. Meanwhile, Alma and Luri arrive at the treasury's door, but the guards surround them, so they prepare for battle. Fortunately, the king arrives, so Luri explains the situation to him and asks for permission to enter the treasury, so he orders the guards to open the doors for them. Outside, Matthias parries away several powerful attacks by Zardias, but one of the slashes brutally injures him. So Zardias expresses his disappointment that the Gojo Satoru of their world can't even lace his boots. However, Matthias realizes that the only way to defeat him is to give up his life. In the royal treasury room, Luri finds a box which the magic stone reacts to. When they find a magic sword emitting an incredible amount of magic power, they carry it on their way to meet Matthias. Meanwhile, Zardias calls Matthias an ignorant fool for thinking he can buy time with a pathetic weapon and fires a barrage of dark blasts, which Matthias blocks with a barrier. As they clash, Zardias commends Matthias for casting a barrier around the kingdom which he can't enter, but he reveals that he already had minions inside the kingdom before the barrier was mounted. Luri and Alma run into a revived version of the demons they previously bodied, so they destroy him a second time with a combo attack. However, Astral makes a surprise return and declares that he'll unalive them under orders of Zardias, and the girls realize that he's the only demon left to challenge them since there are no other demon signatures around. However, Astral holds 2 of their classmates hostage and threatens to spill their guts like spaghetti if the girls don't surrender the magic sword. Outside the barrier, Zardias explains to Matthias that he resurrected the bodies of his minions and magically ordered them to slay the girls, so they'll continue working for him until their bodies wilt away. Zardias then fires an explosive Rasengan at the barrier, so Matthias mounts several magic shields to block the attack, but Zardias redirects it towards Iris, forcing him to create more shields to protect her. At this point, Matthias is exhausted, but Zardias tells him to cast away his comrades and show him the power of the strongest mage in humanity. Down below, Astral continues blackmailing the girls until they eventually surrender the sword to him, so Zardias tells Matthias to give up since he has no hope of winning the battle. Hearing this, Matthias considers using his remaining life force and magic power to reincarnate himself into the future, so he can improve his skills and make a comeback at the cost of humanity being destroyed. However, he gets flashbacks of his time with the girls, which motivate him to charge his sword again and continue attacking Zardias. As Astral tries to grab the sword, he's stopped by a mini-explosion spell sent by Edward and the students, so Luri seizes the opportunity and frees the hostages. Before Astral can retaliate, Alma appears behind him and fires several enchanted arrows into his back, so Edward restrains him with magical ropes and tells the girls to leave the rest to him. At the same time, Matthias channels his life energy into magic power to increase his combat potential as a last resort to hold Zardias off until the girls arrive. This allows him to fight on equal terms with Zardias, and he orders Iris to blast Zardias with a breath attack, but before she can pull it off, Zardias counters with a powerful blast of his own. Matthias tries to land a cheap shot, but Zardias dodges and kicks him away like a soccer ball, while Iris falls on the ground. Just then, the girls arrive and throw the sword to Matthias, but just as he catches it, Zardias stabs a hole through his chest, leaving the girls petrified in fear. As Matthias falls to the ground, his hubby, Luri, calls out to him desperately. But Matthias responds in a glowing form and explains to a confused Zardias that unaliving him was what activated the sword's ability. Zardias decides to slay him again, but Matthias blocks his attack and clashes with him at high speed. During their standoff, Zardias claims that Matthias's battered body won't hold out for long, even though his magic capacity has increased, but Matthias says it doesn't matter because he can animate with magic alone, just like Zardias did with his comrades. Enraged, Zardias asks if he's Thanos in disguise since no human should be capable of such magic, but Matthias introduces himself as the strongest sage with the weakest crest and finishes Zardias off with a powerful slash. As Zardias crumbles away, he reveals that he's not the only chaos demon in the world and promises Matthias that the next demon will destroy him. After he vanishes, Matthias returns to the ground, where Luri hugs him and expresses how relieved she is, causing him to blush. Just then, Edward arrives and informs them that there were no casualties in the kingdom, so Matthias and the girls decide to help out in reconstructing the capital. Matthias then explains to everyone that his magic sword was a one-time use weapon, but once he swings it, a shockwave erases an entire mountain. The next morning, Matthias and the girls thank the king for permitting them to enter the treasury and claim the sword which defeated Zardias, but the king says he was just doing his job and avoiding a beef with Matthias. As a reward for their heroic deeds, the king offers to give Matthias titles and lands, but Matthias refuses because he wants to live a simple life as an adventurer, so the king lets him keep the magic sword. However, the king feels like it's not enough, so he asks the girls to pick what they want from the treasury as well, and the gold digger queen Alma immediately asks for money. While searching through the treasury, Matthias finds a bow he created in his past life made of vibranium, so he asks the guard for the bow, and the guard explains that it was sold to the Star Company. When they arrive at the store, the merchant shows them that he's melted down the bow and turned it into a metal box, but Matthias pulls an Elon Musk move by buying all the special metal blocks in his collection. Afterwards, Matthias buys some jewels for Iris, as well as a special crystal he plans to give Luri later, but Edward meets them outside to call them for an emergency. He takes them to a room where a puppet found by the knights is lying, so Matthias scans it with magic and informs them that it's being powered by a demon using human life energy. Hearing this, the captain of the knights, Guile, asks Matthias for his help in stopping the enemy, and he cheerfully agrees. Later that night, Matthias meets up with Luri and gives her a necklace made from the special pendant, so she thanks him and promises to treasure it. The next morning, Matthias and the girls set out on their next adventure with cheerful smiles on their faces. That's it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed and watch this video on screen.